Good evening and welcome to SIMPSON at 8. We are continuing with the interviews that will be held here on my TV ahead of the 2018 general elections. We are pleased to have with us this evening the leader of the Social Democratic Liberal Party, SODELPA, Mr. Sitiveni Ligamamada Rabuka. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Right,
we are 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away actually, from the 2018 general elections. How is the SODELPA campaign going and how do you see your chances?
We're already into polling. The postal ballots have been posted. Pre-polling stations are active as from tomorrow. I have seen what I have seen on the ground, and I'm very, very positive that we will have a much better showing than we had in 2014.
Better show is, so are you saying better showing but not win, or are you saying better showing you'll win?
Better showing meaning a win. A real win, and a win on our own. I'm looking at a majority, and I'm looking at 28 seats.
You're looking at 28 seats. Okay, we'll come and talk about the polling because that presents some challenges for SODELPA. But one of the issues that the opponents are making against you is that the party lacks stability. You've had infighting and squabbling ongoing for almost a year. Some say it's even continuing right now. You've had disgruntled members leaking regularly to the media. People even leaving the party a month to the elections. So how united is SODELPA going into the elections?
We're united with one purpose. We have a manifesto that every candidate's going out preaching. The management board is committed to a very democratic decision-making in our management board meetings. The annual general meeting is always very lively, where members are free to express their views. The leadership issue is one that perhaps other parties can single out. I came into the leadership ranks of SODELPA in 2016. Before that, there had been the leaders who brought SODELPA into the elections of 2014. But there were clauses and elements
that did not allow them to continue further. Yes. But even after you were elected, the decision was made at the AGM that's lively and everything. People were still making issues about it into the media afterwards. So I know a lively party, but some would say that's not a very disciplined party. You want to say?
No, it's a lively party, and it is a disciplined party because when those people chip up, they become chirpy and want to chop up the thing. So the leadership, that is the party president, and the leadership of the management board, they control. I'm just a member of the machine. I'm just part of the big machinery. And they are free to throw darts at me, shoot arrows at me, take pot shots.
They're tearing the party apart, some would say.
Well, they are not. The party is united. In that sense, there are perhaps some disgruntled leaders who vie for my position. I did not ask for the position. I was asked to be available. I made myself available, and the party machinery chose me.
Right. Yeah. So you're here now.
I'm here now.
You're the leader now. You are united going into this election.
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Because the AG stated on this show, told me, look at SODELPA. They're in some kind of hybrid mix. They do not know who is leader and who is the president, who is the deputy leader. They're in shambles. No one knows who the leader is. You've got Rabuka holding her rallies. Same thing, Kappa, not SODELPA. The problem is there's no decisive leadership. Does he have a point, or is he just making a
No, he's making it up, because as Rotemumu is holding her rally in her geographic area, we're having other meetings going on in other areas. Everything is happening concurrently in various areas of Fiji. So we cannot all be at one person's rally, one candidate's rally. So we're very grateful that she is making or organizing those rallies wherever she organizes them to be held, while the rest of us continue to have our either pocket meetings or big village or combined villages meetings.
Okay, just to round it off, when they point at SODELPA and say, the choice is clear. We are a very strong, disciplined party with a firm leader.
Yes.
SODELPA can't even stabilize their own party. How can they run the country? What's your response?
My response is I am a stable leader. If I'm not there, depending on the outcome of the legal situation I'm in, it automatically goes to the party president. And that is before the substantive replacement decision is made by the management board.
Okay, so should anything happen to you,
Yeah.
we're not even the lead case, should anything happen to you, the party president takes over?
Correct.
All right. And your number is 530.
Yes.
What is the number that SODELPA will be promoting in the next 2 weeks?
546.
546. Whose number is that?
Ratu Nengamal Malaw.
Ratu Naingama. So that is the number that will that SODELPA will be pushing ahead of the elections, not 530.
Not 530 at the moment. Well, we're telling them, look, I'm hopeful, but to be prudent, we have to be very, very prudent. While we hope for the best, we have to prepare for the worst. The worst is I get disqualified, in which case they go for
546.
Yeah.
16 minutes away from 16 from away from 530.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah. So what is your message that SODELPA is still on track despite all this uncertainty that's hanging over your head?
Well, my assurance to the members of the party who seem to be guided or distracted by the apparent disunity at the top is that Rotimo and I are having our own discussions. We had one three-way meeting with the party president a few Sundays ago where we said, look, all this talk about disunity is not true. We know that we're united. And Rotimo and I will continue to do that. We see eye to eye on most of the things, in fact, everything. And we are both pushing for reconciliation, and while we go for national reconciliation, we have to show the nation that we ourselves are reconciled.
Okay. One of the things being said about SODELPA and your candidate lineup is that it's full of old people, the politicians of the past, including yourselves, that it's lacking young, fresh, new voices. Does SODELPA have the candidates to lead Fiji in this modern era?
Of course. We have experience, we have wisdom, we have strength of character, and while we value the support of the young people, we're marching forward in life. They will get to where we are when they get there. We have seen all the things they have not seen. We have learned the things they have not learned. And with experience on our side, we are prepared to work with them and guide them so that they are where we are at their time, during their time, and capable of leading. When you look at the other parties, and it goes with the message, vote for the party leader. In which case, what is there from the other members of their lineup?
So you say it makes no difference whether you are old or young in the party?
It doesn't make any difference. For me, I'm guided. I've always been guided by what Mrs. Clinton said to us in a national prayer breakfast in Washington. She said, she's a very proud Methodist. She said, I'm inspired by what John Wesley used to tell his ministers when they graduated. He said, go into the world and do all the good you can for all the people you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, in all the ways you can, for as long as you ever can. Okay. Which means life.
That's talking about your experience and things. So let's talk about your political career. Mm-hmm. A lot of people see the country's politics is in a mess, and that it's you who started this mess when you overthrew the democratically elected government in 1987. Do you think that's a big liability for you now?
No.
Being regarded as the father of Fiji's school culture?
No. Taking heed of the processes of election and respecting the ballot boxes was shattered in 1977 when the Governor General himself stepped in and disregarded.
That's not at the same scale of 1987 with overthrow by the military, one would argue, Mr. Rabuka.
Well, that was not a military, that was me and my group.
Well, it was the military. You took over the military, more or less.
Yes, well, it was a two-pronged. I took over command of the military, and because they followed me and after what I did, and we just took over, and within the 5 years of the interim government, Rabuka in his very capable leadership, with the old connections he had with international leaders, restored stability very quickly.
It brought the country back. And I don't want to dwell too long on the past, but you don't think it's a liability?
No, not a personal one.
Okay.
As far
political?
Not a political liability either, because we had recovered. I had moved from 87 to 97,
okay.
And I'm beyond 97 now.
Back in 97, when you basically led the push for the 1990 Constitution, you were closely aligned with the term Fiji for the Fijians, and held up as the poster for Fijian, for Fijian nationalism. Your posters were around the country. You talked about guaranteeing Itoke political paramountcy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much of those views remain with you today?
They remain, because I saw that at that time in 1987, which is 31 years ago, 111 years after independence, we had lived under that sort of political pillar of Fijians ruling Fiji, with the chief's leadership and the relationship with the Crown for our Governor General, governors before independence. There had been no race killing. There had been no religious killing. There still has been none. And under that leadership, we went through stormy waters with no casualties.
So, should the Itoke have political paramountcy in the country? Like, for instance, should the Prime Minister always be an indigenous Fijian?
Not now. We've moved away from that. And I think we are open now for the best political leader to be the leader of Fiji. We can't go back to that, because they will raise the issue between traditional leadership and just any ordinary indigenous person.
Okay, so that's not an issue anymore?
No.
All right. Under your leadership, a lot of Indo-Fijians left the country in droves. They sought a better life elsewhere, away from what they felt was a racially suppressive regime that you led under your leadership. Those who remain, they continue to distrust you, or a substantial number. They want to know, is this the same Rabuka or a different Rabuka that took place from 1987 until now? What is your message to them?
My message to them is to look at the 97 more than the 87. Where did those people
You're looking at the 1997 constitutional Rabuka,
yes,
than the 87 military coup leader?
Correct. Yes, because we all grow. As I said, we all marching in life, and we pick up experiences, we pick up the effects of our hurts and other people's hurts, as well as the realization of their dreams and hopes. And we get enriched by those as we move on.
So before we move to the break, how much of you is still the same and how much of you has changed?
I'm still a native from Navatu. I am just as educated as I was then, but I have had the experience of leading the country and the honor of calling every citizen a subject of the country I led.
All right. We're with Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka, leader of the SODELPA party. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to SIMPSON at 8. We're with SODELPA leader, Mr. Sitiveni Rabuka. Now, one of the big issues that continues to follow you around is the issue of racism and race politics. The party you now lead, SODELPA, is accused by the Prime Minister and Attorney General and many others of being racist and pushing race-based politics, that you cater specifically for Itoke issues. What's your response to that?
The catering for Itoke issues is really an attempt to hang on to what has been taken away, systematically taken away over the years from the Itoke. All we're saying is that we should allow things to evolve and not push for sudden and rapid changes to the Itoke culture, especially the mutton to Itoke. That is a very old thing that is commonly talked about in Fijian communities and societies. Although they talk about it, very few understand what it really is. And mutton to Itoke is the hierarchy of Itoke control, which has at the pinnacle the Moselevo Turanga,
Right.
and all the safeguards of institutionalized and Itoke-owned assets are controlled by the Mutton to Itoke.
So, so you cater specifically for the Itoke.
Yes, on that, and the Mutton to Itoke.
And what is your response to the allegations of being racist and race-based politics?
Well, we're just trying to consolidate and not let too much erode. While all the races and all societies, all immigrant societies and cultures encroach upon Itoke assets, they have to be mindful that this is all we have. Whereas the Europeans have the whole of Europe, the Indians have the whole of the subcontinent of India, the Chinese have the whole of China, where they have their tribal bases, they have their tribal land. This is all we have.
Is that a winning message that you think that will take you to the elections?
No, we have more and more people who are now suburban dwellers and urban dwellers. And but
because the question I'd like to ask, are those hierarchical structures, are they still relevant in today's?
They are relevant, but not to the new generation. And while we continue to try and push them as issues relevant to the rural dwellers, they will slowly be eclipsed by the modern and.
So you're worried about loss of culture?
Yeah, too sudden. Eventually, they'll probably go. The way that the Fiji First government has introduced some of those things, they have changed land ownership for the next 99 years in the land bank issue. While we still have our Matangali land close to those put under land bank control, less and less is still under our direct control.
All right, because some analysts had hoped that SODELPA would move a bit closer to the middle and be more representative, broadly representative of the country. But the sense one gets is that you've narrowed your path specifically to the Itoke votes. Is that the correct thing?
I say that with confidence because I believe that we, the Itoke, being mostly Christians, we're guided by Christian principles of embracing our vistas as contained in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, where we look after our vistas and those who are strangers in our land. They are no longer strangers now. We're all Fijians. We're all Fiji citizens. So we have to just adapt and hope that those that are forcing the encroachment onto what is culturally our only bastion of nationhood.
You talk about encroachment by other parties. The way they turn it, the way it's turned by the other, the way it is being turned around by some is that the problem is the racist politics and racist undertones that come from your members to suppress other races while putting the Itoke forward.
Yes, that is sad, and we have had to control that.
What is the official policy on that?
The official policy is that we are all embracing. While we maintain our view about the culture of the Itoke, we would like to adapt and adopt with the other cultures that we have now embraced into the nationhood of Fiji, and only hope and pray that they too understand our situation.
So what is your message to your candidates? What is the official SODELPA message to candidates about this racist, or avoiding or not making racist statements?
My message is that stick to the mandate. Stick to the mandate. And the mandate does not advocate a one-race Fiji.
Okay. So it's not an election strategy because 55 to 60% of the votes are Itoke votes. Would that be, some would say, the way you're going?
It is still an issue because of that, because we are still a majority, but that majority will not last because we increased only by a natural birth rate, while other communities can increase by plane loads. And after 3 years, they can get naturalized and become Fiji citizens, and they're voting by the next election.
All right, so what policies, do you have other policies, say, that caters for, I know we are all Fijians now under the current structure. So like, do you have policies which you're pushing, is that specifically for Itoke or for all Fijians?
No, we would like to restore the Matin to Itoke, which is the Mbosilevo Turanga. And the Mbosilevo Turanga's power to appoint members of the Native Land Trust Board, the Fijian Affairs Board, and also have a voice as the moderating or even the final approval call on matters Itoke.
So that's why you want to bring it back?
Yes.
For addressing Itoke issues?
Yes.
And being, as you say, a source of stability?
Yes.
Because the GCC hasn't been in operation since 2007, for almost 10 years, over
Correct.
10 years now. But life has moved on. Itoke Fijians, some would say, according to the Bainimarama, they have not been disadvantaged. They continue to develop and thrive in the country, and that they did not need a GCC in order to move forward.
A GCC is only the assembly where you bring in the chiefs, the high chiefs of the Matintu Vanua, and their lieutenants from the other Vanuas in their domain, in their kingdoms and confederacies. So it is a select body of able chiefs who collectively make the decisions in the interest of the nation.
Is that still relevant, I ask again, in
It is not irrelevant. It is very, very relevant.
Because, as Bainimarama stated, the chiefs continue to hold traditional dominion, as they do now, over their peoples. No one is taking away their chiefly status and titles or their roles as chiefs. But they just hold the traditional role not to come into politics. Because one of the issues that he continues to raise is about the politicization of the GCC. They supported your coup in '87.
They did not.
Well, some say they did.
Some did.
Yeah, and then in 2000, some members of the GCC, Bainimarama points out, were involved in that it has become tainted with politics and that it had to be removed. What is your response to that?
No, I think they will continue to have politics in the Mbosilevo Turanga. It depends on the executive, and the executive is the government, the prime minister of the day. Bainimarama does not know that 8 provinces did not agree with the 1997 constitution.
8 of the 14.
That's a majority. And I put my foot down and say, this is good for Fiji, we will go this way.
So when you chose not to listen to it, you moved?
Yeah, it depends on the moral fiber of the leader. If the leader is thinking nation, then he's got to be able to convince the chiefs. I'm sorry, members of the Great Council of Chiefs, I've taken your advice. I am the Prime Minister, the executive, Chief Executive Officer of Fiji, Inc., and this is what is good for Fiji. Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the Christian state. Bainimarama says he's seen a DVD of SODELPA MPs talking about making Fiji a Christian state. What is the official SODELPA policy?
That is not a, it is not a manifesto issue.
Okay.
We would like to keep Fiji the way it was, and it was a Christian state because our laws are based on Christian values.
So, because I wanted to know what you wanted to do. Do you wanting to put that in the preamble of the Constitution? Or
it can still go back to the preamble of the Constitution like it did in the 1990, but particularly in the 1997 Constitution, which acknowledged the work of the missionaries in the civilization of Fiji.
All right. Now land, because quite a few issues for us to cover.
Yeah.
What is SODELPA's policy on Itoke land or native land? What concerns do you have? Because isn't it well protected enough in the 2013 Constitution?
It is not protected in the native land in the 2013 Constitution. It is so-called controlled by the government. They are claiming it is, but they are forgetting that they are a party to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. as a member of the United Nations, we are...
But the protection of Itoke land, as Bainimarama has stated,
Yes.
I don't want to, but the protection is clearly stated. No one can take land away from the Itoke.
You can take it away for 99 years.
As a lease.
They've taken it away for 99 years now in the land bank.
For leasing purposes.
For leasing or whatever.
Now
What is the use of my land if the whole of the 70 years I'm going to be alive, it's not going to be usable by me and my siblings?
That's noted. Now, weren't leasing also being undertaken when you were in government?
Not that long.
So you're saying that just the length is a problem?
It is the length and for the purpose. For hotels and big programs like that, and suburban housing, they can be taken for longer periods, but not the agricultural land in the agricultural areas and in the rural areas.
So you're stating it's not protected enough?
And I'm saying that nothing about us without us. That's under UN DRIP. And about us, nothing about us without us. The without us has been taken away now, the control by the Native Land Trust Board.
Well, talking about taking away land, Bainimarama, again, he has pointed to Momi and Denarau. These lands were taken away, converted into freehold, during the tenure of Itoke-led governments, including Denarau under your watch. But he's saying he has strengthened it from what was available in your time.
No, what we had at the time was the Land Exchange Act. And that was acre for acre or dollar value for dollar value of the land that belonged to the Crown, exchanged for land that belonged to the Matangalis. So if he would care to look at that Land Exchange Act, that he would understand that there was no land taken away. The only land taken away now is Mbua land being shipped out in barges.
That's a soil, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because he's saying that there was that window, it allowed for land to be taken away. He has closed that window and made land more secure now under the 2013 Constitution.
He has not. He does not understand the law he's talking about.
All right, I'll leave it at that and let the people decide on that. On the issue of land lease money, do you still hold the view, because I've heard you state that the distribution should be unequal according to the rank of the person in the Matangali as it was in the past?
Yes, I agree with that. Just not equal distribution.
Why? Because that's not a popular view.
Well, he's talking
if
about
someone who is getting money now,
how can it be a popular view? When you're talking about popularity, you're talking about majority.
Yeah.
In a Matangali, there's only one Turanga Matangali.
Well, what about the rest of the Matangali who are now getting more?
Well, if you're looking for popularity, you will get the vote, the majority vote from the non-chiefs.
Yes. Well, that's what this is about.
Yeah, well, that's what he's talking about. And we're not talking about
well,
popularity.
He's talking about equality as well. So
and then in a letter, in an earlier question, you asked about, he is now acknowledging that they are doing well as tribal chiefs. What for? For what? For that leadership, for that traditional leadership, they were accorded the share, the allocation given to them.
Okay.
So, for traditional leadership, eh?
So it should go back to the way it was
I believe so,
in the
yes.
past.
I believe so.
And the normal traditional process be followed.
Correct.
As you speak. So for those that who are happy now that those Itoke, that are happy now that they're receiving much bigger shares than they used to get in the past, what is your message to them?
My message to them is they have to understand who they really are and accept the fact that we collectively own the land and we use it now and keep it there for the future generations who will determine how to use that land when it's there, when they inherit it. We have to understand that and also to relate that to our everyday life. No company will demand that we have equal share of the company profits.
So, so you're saying stay with the traditional system, don't move into the modern, more democratic...
the modern way is acknowledging the rank. The CEO gets more than the deputy manager and
based on the work that they do.
Based on the work that they do.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We're with Sitiveni Ligamamada Rabuka, leader of the SODELPA party. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Simpson and 8. We'll move on now to the economic and social issues. Now, the Fiji First government is going to this election saying they're boasting of a strong track record of achievements. Sustained economic growth for the last 9 years, major infrastructure development on roads, access to water, free education, free bus fare for school students, tertiary loan schemes, increased social benefits for the elderly. How do you propose to run against a record like that?
My record was audited by the Auditor General and presented to
You're talking
Parliament.
of your record from, you're talking about your record from 1992 to 1999.
Correct.
Right.
How much of their record has been presented to Parliament? How much of their record has been audited by the Auditor General?
So we've seen some, not all, but so let's talk about your record then. How strong is your record compared to what I've mentioned about? Let's leave the Auditor General aside for now.
You will probably find that my average from 92 to 97 is much higher. Well, not much higher because we were still below the potential of 5%, but we were...
What was the economic growth?
Our economic growth was also... it's an average of 2 point something, and ours was, our economic growth was still higher, is still higher than what they're saying now. What are they talking about? 2.5, 2.6. Ours was 2.8, and we had a very peak growth in GDP in 1998, and that affected our economic growth. That was the year after the Constitution and the year before the general election.
Well, they also point to they were affected by Winston and things.
We had our own. We had the big ones that tore down all the major bridges. Melrose Bridge, that came in after the cyclone at the end of '93, and Singatoka Bridge, Nangali Bridge.
So you face the same issues. The same issues. Now, on issues such as free education, free bus fare, why did you not implement these things when you were in government?
Who said we didn't?
Well, they tell me. It wasn't there. It wasn't there the way it is at this level.
Can I show you that?
Okay, what did you mean by free education then?
Well, what do they mean by free education then?
Well,
free education
no school
is free
fees,
tuition.
school fees for still...
Tuition-free education at the time. Now we're into the new era of the Millennium Development Goals,
right,
where accessibility, universal accessibility to quality education for all. That has taken another step. During our time, accessibility was a responsibility of parenthood. So people had to send their children to school, and we had to pay for some of the fees. And then we started introducing the tuition-free. So everything is relative. It's all part of our development.
So you say yours was free education for that time?
For that time, yes, it was.
And free bus fares?
We didn't have free bus fare.
Yeah. So
because now it is free, and we appreciate that. A lot of our people appreciate that. Our free TELs in tertiary education appreciated by the young people. But then, our young generation today lives for today. Paying for the debt in 4 years' time or 3 years' time when they come out of university, they will deal with it when they come out.
So we'll get to that. Let's talk about your record now, because you look at it and saying it's a successful one. According to your critics, and I've sussed out what they're saying during your tenure the NBF bank collapsed. They're saying poverty levels increased. They're saying infrastructure deteriorated around the country. A lot of workers and unions went on strike, seeking better wages and working conditions. Even landowners in Monasavu did roadblocks to seek compensation, complain about the lack of development up in the highlands. Would that accurately describe the 7 years in power, or would you respond to how people see this?
No, that accurately reflects what we had at the time. Roads will deteriorate, bridges will deteriorate, buildings will deteriorate, and our maintenance programs will just have to be constantly kept up. No road is permanent. Even the road alignment, right, they may have to change with the changing courses of the waterways. The Monasabu landowners were very selfish. The government bent over backwards to accommodate their request. My government, or I chaired the meeting which agreed to the big payout of $52.8 million, which they still have not received because they have not been able to come back.
All right. They wouldn't describe what they did as selfish. They were fighting for their rights. But I don't want to get bogged down on that issue.
Right.
Let's talk about, you talked about roads deteriorated. This government has said they've put in a lot of money into development.
Yeah.
They've taken the loans and taken debt to improve the roads that have deteriorated. You are against taking that debt.
No, every government has taken debt.
Yeah.
It's got to be sustainable borrowing based on 40% or less of our GDP, so that it gives us, while we repay, we continue to develop our infrastructure, and where we have to, we still borrow, but we're not borrowing so that we are too deeply in debt that we cannot bring ourselves out.
Yeah, so you're saying now that the debt that is being held is unsustainable?
I believe it is unsustainable.
Because, because the debt also grew quite substantially when you were in government, according to the figures that we've used.
Yes, but it was still sustainable.
It's still under 40%?
Under 40%
in your
of
time.
GDP.
Okay. So what is your... what will you do to bring that debt down to 40%?
Well, first of all, we have to just tighten up and see what expenditures can be spread out for a longer period. We have also to see the quality of produce we have received, we have had from the loans we have taken out. I am not happy and I'm not satisfied that we are building the roads specified in the contracts for the building of roads, whether we're using the right material and the right compacting, whatever they call it.
So how will you do it better?
We'll have to better audit the work of the contractors.
You don't think that's being done now?
I don't believe it's being properly done. The Suva 90 highway was built by local workers, audited by our own engineers. It's still there. We have some tahsiling to repair every once in a while.
So what are you saying? I mean, to come to the point that you'll bring back what, the PWD, or will...
We will bring back the PWD.
Okay.
Because it is a government asset, a government workforce, just as we will bring back or utilize our military engineers more in the rural development. Right. They were raised especially for that.
Talking about record for record, let me point to another example of what happened in your time and what's happened now. Because one of the other criticism of your time is that public enterprises were rife with poor performance and poor management. Would that be correct?
No, we were just going into the privatization, the corporatization, privatization era in the world, where the new entry into the economy of the world were encouraged to reduce the size of government. That was the element at the time. People, new countries that were coming just out of colonial status into new nationhood, of independent nationhood after the Second World War, the withdrawal of the colonial powers, and the emergence of new independent states based on colonial organizations. They were encouraged to go into the corporatization of their public enterprises, the government departments into public government enterprises, and then private enterprise.
So we didn't know, we were not ready, or we were just adjusting, or we don't have the skills, or was it corruption and mismanagement?
I think...
let me point at the Fiji Pine Limited, for instance,
yeah,
as an example that my team gave to me. Profit of 300,000 in 1992, less in 1993, didn't start to make no profits. Zero transparency and non-accountability, sacking of its two top bosses, Ratu Kumabol and Navitala Naisor, in 1998. Millions of dollars misused and accounted for. Landowners did not see a single cent from the project. Now you may dispute this, but they're talking about under the Fiji First government. Fiji Pine is now one of government stock companies. Over 20 million profit a year, 21 million in 2015, 24 million in 2016. Landowners getting royalty payments in millions of dollars. This year, 7 million in royalties based on the performance alone. So just judging by those two performances, how would you describe something like Fiji Pine?
Pine is a tree in the forest.
Yes.
It
It's also a source of income.
Yes, it takes so many years to mature. And then you start harvesting. We were just in the beginning of the harvesting. You couldn't expect us to have so much income in the first years of harvest.
So you're saying the pines were not ready during your time?
No, it was ready. But the graph, the income graph had not started, while the expenditure graph was still growing. And there would come a time when we start harvesting and the income graph starts growing, and that the expenses on new forests, etc., coming down, and eventually the sale proceeds far outweigh the expenses.
So you're saying that's why this performance
that
now
is why that is it's a
and it's not to do with the good management or lack of corruption or...
No, it got nothing to do with that. I cannot say that there was no corruption. If there was, who was charged and what was the outcome? So it could have been a personal misconduct of one or two, but the industry itself had to show a continuing increase in expenses and then slow beginning of incomes earnings.
Because you can point to other public enterprises that Fiji Ports, PEFCO, FBC, Public Rental Board, all were making losses at that time. They're making gains under this current government.
Port was doing well. Port was doing well, and all we were trying to do was to take them, make them strong enough to attract private investors. And we were coming out of the port's government-owned port and government-administered port, where people were paid by the government. And then slowly the port had to pay for its own staff and its own operations. And it is a natural thing for new independent states to go through.
So it was part of the developing process that you were saying at the
growth pain.
All right. Let's move on and discuss your party manifesto for the 2018 elections. You released last week. We haven't got the time to go through all of them right now, but what's the key priority areas? Key priority
area is the cost of living. We've looked at that, and we want to do a very good, a sharp change in the first 100 days and remove all the VAT on basic food items.
Or which basic food items?
There are certain issues, certain items that have been identified by our technical people, and they will be taken away.
So you'll remove VAT. Wasn't it your SVT government that introduced VAT?
We inherited a budget that was based on VAT from the interim government, and we just had to continue with that and try and reduce it if we could.
But
there was no VAT. There was no VAT on basic food items.
So under SODELPA, VAT will be taken away on basic food items?
No, on basic food items, yes.
Minimum wage? Well, there's a lot of talk about that. Just quickly on yours.
Ours has always been $4. $4 for minimum wage.
It won't lead to job losses?
It will not lead to job losses. We will ensure that there are no jobs lost because they will be involved, the employers will be involved in the discussions about wages. If they show us that they will have a very highly reduced profit margin or profit in their earnings, then we will have to adjust. We'll give them concessions. We will make concessions.
All right. Because some will ask
rather than exceptions. But I know that the copra planters or coconut planters in Sitiveni and Sitiveni, they cannot afford $4.
Right.
But then you look at the so-called social wages that they have. The people living on the estate, they slaughter one of the bosses' price heifers every 2 weeks, and they get the meat free or in his pockets. So it is going to be tailor-made. They bring us the...
That'll be different from how this government is looking into it?
I believe so, yes. This one has not catered for the ordinary workers all over the place.
All right, because how did you address the minimum wage issue when you were in government?
We introduced it, and it was part of the national
Because this
wage.
government is saying that they introduced it.
No, it's always been there. The Wage Guidelines Council, it's always been there. They look at the job market, they look at the employers' concerns, and the tripartite forum comes in, and it's all a national machinery of wage fixing, as well as harmonizing the needs of the employers and employees and the government.
All right, quickly, TELS, what is the main change?
TELS will, current TELS holders will all go to scholarship to finish their tertiary education. There will be no need for them to repay the loans. And those that come into the new education...
Will that be sustainable?
We can make it sustainable.
Because that was the criticism that the AG said when I gave all the options from the
Where
three
is that
different
money
parties. He's saying, okay, make sure when you make a choice, choose the one that will be sustainable.
It will be sustainable, because that money that the AG is talking about has been taken out of the budget and paid into the education institutions to be recovered. So it's just like the loan that the students have taken out from the people.
Okay.
So as we eventually go
You're
on,
saying yours will
we
be
just budget
sustainable.
for that education.
You're saying yours will be better and sustainable.
Yes,
right.
It will be, and we will provide a very highly trained workforce.
Last one for we can have time to talk for health. The state of the health system was also heavily criticized under your government. What are your plans to do it
We are
better
criticizing it now.
Yeah.
Under
So
our government, we continue to grow the healthcare facilities available for the people. We established new nursing stations, new health centers. We improved the hospitals that were there, and we built new ones. And as we grew, we tried to remain abreast with the medical development in other parts of the world, according to the economic strength of the nation. There are certain things that we have to go away for. There are certain things that we have to bring in people for. But when we were in the interim government, I had asked the then Minister for Health, the late Kurusangila, and the then interim Prime Minister Rabuka, Mrs. Mara, if we could start thinking about having tertiary care available in Fiji. We now have it. Teams come in.
But it didn't happen during your
time.
No,
but now happening with people coming in. It's not here all the time.
It's something you will look to,
yeah.
to develop. Now, Mr. Rabuka, you were once the most powerful man in the country from 1997 onwards. People feared you, you commanded respect. Then after the loss, you were confined to the political wilderness for around 10 to 15 years, people say. Even people on both sides did not want anything to do with you at one point, both Itauke and Indo-Fijians. You were driving around in a small vehicle at one time, walking around like a common man. People thought your political career was over. And now you're back leading one of the major political parties with a chance of winning the next elections and a shot of being Prime Minister again. You've held various different positions on a number of issues over the last 30 years. So the essential question of these elections, when people see Rabuka, is why should people trust you?
Well, that is the issue, and that is the question. I believe they can trust me. I've been through all that. I believe I've stood the test. Those that are old enough will have seen the transition from Rabuka of 87 to the Rabuka of 97. I'm now much older. I'm now much wiser. I was 70 in September, but I'm still alert enough to continue to contribute to the development of this nation and contribute to develop the leadership of this nation of the future. And I cannot do that from the sideline. I can do that from the sideline, but I've been asked now to come in and take the driving seat, and I'm available, and I've been selected, so people can, that is, the vote will be on whether people can trust us, trust what we have promised, try and remember what we have done, as opposed to what they have seen in the last 12 years. But you said I was probably one of the most powerful persons in Fiji. I'd like to tell the young 18-year-old that's watching this program, and the older people in the villages who are older than I am, come next week. You have equal strength or equal power with me, because we have the power to change this government.
All right, Mr. Sitiveni, Ligamamada, Rabuka. Thank you for joining me on SIMPSON at 8.
Naka.
That was SIMPSON at 8 for the evening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and join us again next week. Don't go away. Nimelote na Sorotambua is coming straight up after this on my TV with Tali Mangi Mangi. Good night.